Last week, I posted the Why Pot of Greed is Banned video, and so far the feedback has been awesome. It's growing at about the rate of the Egyptian God video when I first posted that one. It's already at, probably by the time this video goes up, 200,000 views, which is really exciting. It's really great to see so much positive feedback for a video. And yes, about half the comments on that video are just people joking and saying they don't know what it does, and that's perfectly fine. You can meme it up in the comments. I don't really mind that at all. But one of the things that I notice is that of the sort of negative comments on that video, unlike the God card video, they're not so much mad at me, they're just talking about why Pot of Greed isn't that good of a card, which I found very intriguing. Anyway though, in today's video I want to talk about some of the funniest comments on this video, starting off with the two most highly suggested errata fixes for Pot of Greed. So the first thing that a lot of people suggested is sort of theorizing how they could fix Pot of Greed to come back into the game. The most common one is, why don't you just make it draw one card? And if you were one of the people that said that, let me just inform you that there's actually a card that does that with a drawback that is currently limited, and that is Upstart Goblin. So I think what's interesting about these suggestions for fixing Pot of Greed is that people make the card worse in one way, but then don't really think about how powerful it is, because even with reversing one thing in Pot of Greed, it's usually just a better version of a card that's already been on the ban list. In this case, if you make it just draw one card, it is a better Upstart Goblin. The other highly suggested change is just make it a trap card, so it's a lot slower. The counter argument to that is that, did you not realize that Reckless Greed is just a worse version of Pot of Greed in a trap form, which means that yes, Pot of Greed cannot be a trap card, because then it would be just a better Reckless Greed, a card that once again, even though it's been a while, has seen some time on the forbidden and limited list. So those are the two most highly suggested things, the ways to fix Pot of Greed. I just wanted to give my 2 cents into the reasons that doesn't actually work. Anyway though, let's check out some of these comments. But literally every deck nowadays is the same "I'd otherwise you wouldn't survive," or one of like 2 prevailing meta decks. That's the one thing I really dislike about Yu-Gi-Oh! Is that most decks aren't competitively viable. You can't actually create anything original. Those last 2 statements are what I found most interesting about this comment, that most decks aren't competitively viable, which is true. That's going to be true in any card game, really, in any game, really. 90% of the cards or the characters in a game usually aren't going to be competitively viable. It's really hard to actually make every single character good in a card game or in a video game. So yeah, that's true. And then you can't actually create anything original. That's a comment that comes from people that have never played competitively or haven't played competitively in like 10 years. It's an assumption that they make about the competitive landscape, but they don't actually understand. That's not really true. All the time in every single event, we see innovation at the top tables for people that are actually topping the events, people that are actually winning the events. That's just a pretty common comment from someone that doesn't play competitively, but I just kind of wanted to put it on here to let you know that if you're watching this video, there's tons of originality in the Yu-Gi-Oh! TCG as far as competitions go. You just have to look for it. Ugh, ban lists are just for the butthurt kids that got their asses handed to them because one card turned the table. Take that L like a man and stop whining, crying, and bitching for cards to be banned. I think this person, there's a couple comments like this, we'll get to them in a little bit. I think this person thinks that the players design the ban list. I don't know if you realize that Konami designs it, not the players. So it's not like someone just got beat at a locals from Pot of Greed and then called up Konami and said, please ban this card, because in that case, pretty much every card in the game would be banned, and that's obviously not how it goes. So yeah, Konami creates the ban list. The players have no impact or insight into how that's done. Just to let you know. Oh man, this one's great. Yeah, but it has a tribute system, so there is no reason Yu-Gi-Oh! Cannot have Pot of Greed is because Yu-Gi-Oh! Players are whiny brats, like the brand. Just play Duel Links, you'll figure it out. You heard it here first, guys. Just play the Duel Links, you'll figure it out. You are really stupid. Who cares if there's a card of units? Just got work harder. What? Just don't ban any of the cards. That makes it easier. Also, just make a rule where you are limited to having a specific amount of copies for that card in your deck. Simple as that. You see what's funny about this comment is this person is basically pitching the idea of a ban list while also condemning the idea of a ban list. So you need 11 minutes and 47 seconds to say you go +2 in every situation? No, but I do need 11 minutes and 47 seconds to say you go +1 in every situation. Maybe you should have watched the video. Well, they should bring Pot of Greed back to 1 because you can Ash Blossom it, plus Carditomize is much worse, lets you draw up to 3 free cards with minimal drawback. Now there's a couple things that make this comment pretty funny. First off, he sees Carditomize having minimal drawback despite the fact that you can't special summon, can't do damage, and also you have to have no cards in hand to draw 3 cards, but he sees that as minimal drawback, which I found really interesting. But also, just in general, whenever you hear someone defending a card that can come back because there's counters to it, in this case Ash Blossom, that's pretty much how you know they have no actual input for that discussion, because then you could basically say that every single monster card should be legal because there's always cards like Effect Filler or cards like Torrential Tribute, cards like Bottomless Trap Hole to actually take care of them. What a lot of these people don't seem to realize is that you won't actually always draw the counters to those cards, and in those cases, you're really screwed. This next comment is great because it's very clearly written by someone that only plays Duel Links, and let's see if you can figure out why. Yet they have Amazon, and Set Deck's hat have an essay for its description. Not only can they attack, they also defend, destroy, summon an army at the set of just 1 card. K Konami, Pot of Greed is OP. And if you don't play Duel Links or you didn't watch that pack opening video that I did of the Legendary Duelist video, you might not realize, but he is actually saying that Amazoness Onslaught is better than Pot of Greed. That is what this comment is alluding to, which is hilarious. Most Magic the Gathering decks use basic lands. Should we ban all of them? There's an old rulebook for beginners that strongly encourages it intentionally. There are also better card advantage engines anyway. Now this is a really strange comment because at first I didn't quite understand what he was saying, but basically his argument, as I sort of went in I actually replied to him and tried to figure out what the heck he was arguing, but he was saying that because in Magic every single deck plays basic lands, that's no different from in Yu-Gi-Oh! If every single person plays Pot of Greed. This is obviously one of the dumbest arguments I've ever heard in defense of a card like Pot of Greed, specifically because you are talking about a resource system that you have to use in Magic. That'd be like saying, oh, if everyone's playing energy cards in Pokemon, we should play Pot of Greed, or if everyone's using mana crystals in Hearthstone, we should play Pot of Greed. You can't equate a resource system with a card. At the end of the day, though, I have to recognize that all the comments that I've talked about in this video so far, as well as all the comments on the Pot of Greed video, they're all just the opinions of the people commenting. If you compare this to the last time that I did a commenters don't understand card video, which was the Egyptian God card discussion on comments, those comments were more based on people not understanding how the Egyptian God cards worked. They would think that Ra worked in a way that it didn't actually say it did, therefore they would draw their own conclusions about why the card is much better than I'm saying it is. In the case of Pot of Greed, though, outside of meme comments, pretty much everyone knows what the card does. It's like literally 3 words. It's just draw 2 cards. That's the latest printing of it, which makes it not that complicated. An advanced player, an intermediate player, and a beginning player can look at it and know what it does. So what makes this discussion interesting compared to the Egyptian God card video is that in this case, we are talking about an extremely simple card, and then people are drawing a huge variety of conclusions from that simple card. I think one of the most common responses that I didn't necessarily call out in this video because it wasn't that impactful to the comment section, if that's even a thing, there were a lot of people that said the current modern state of Yu-Gi-Oh! Is so broken anyway, why not just add a card like Pot of Greed to the mix? Now, I'm assuming that the majority of those comments are from people that haven't played in like 5 or 10 years, and they're just saying that because they wouldn't have to play that format. But what's interesting is that if I was someone that didn't play Yu-Gi-Oh! Because they thought the format was broken, I would probably want to reduce the overall number of broken cards in the format, not just add them until the game is just beyond repair. But I think what's cool is that we did have a dialogue in the comment section. On all these comments that I'm talking about, there were replies to them, sort of not necessarily, I mean, arguing probably isn't the right word, more like debating whether or not that Pot of Greed can come back. And I think that's really cool. I think that's the type of video that I want to make, where where all sorts of players that haven't played in years can come and sort of comment on it and discuss if the card actually is super powerful, as well as I think a couple cool comments that I really liked were people that were pointing out that if you asked me like 5 years ago if cards like Regeki and Monster Reborn could come back, I probably would have said no. And then people are talking about, well, what makes Pot of Greed different? And I think the thing that does make Pot of Greed different is that every single deck would play it at all times. It's a card that's good at all stages of the game, early, mid, and late game, unlike Regeki and Monster Reborn, where they're not good at every single stage. But so far, I'm just really liking the feedback that I've received on this Pot of Greed discussion video. If you guys haven't watched it, I implore you to. It's a lot of fun. I think it gives a pretty good history on Pot of Greed and why it can't come back. Anyway, though, guys, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you later. Bye.